wonderful, useful tips on creating your amazing, thriving, wonderful 2023 for you and your loved ones. This podcast is conducted in conjunction with the G100 Global Networking and powered by Anchor FM, which is the super awesome free podcast made easy platform. And today we are so thrilled and so honored to be able to have Milaena. Please correct me since I believe I butchered your name. So, Milaena as our guest, and please tell us what is it that you do for our guests.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. You didn't butcher my name too terribly. You did a great job. It's Milaena. And so what I do, I'm a registered dietitian and I place a focus on personalized nutrition. And how I do that is I utilize a comprehensive genetic testing and gut health testing, which allows me to create custom meal plans and fitness plans for my clients.
Wow, that's amazing. Personalized nutrition. So you don't think the one size fit all, propaganda, what have you, is particularly. But I love that it's personalized nutrition using gut health and genetic testing. I mean, everybody is different. So what brings
Absolutely.
you to do what you do? Or do you always kind of like grow up say, yeah, I want to be a dietitian with all these the fanciness, or what brings you to do what you do?
Yeah, really good question. And I have kind of a double-sided story with that. So I'm going to take you all the way back to my childhood. So I will preface it with I'm Italian. We love our food. I was a 70-pound overweight child. And around the age of 12, I actually saw my dad have a heart attack at the dinner table. And so he's had heart disease my entire life. And this traumatic experience really was the first time that I correlated nutrition as a foundation to living a healthy lifestyle, but also in regards to disease prevention and management. So, as I briefly mentioned, at first, I was overweight as a child, and being 12 years old and going into middle school, I was bullied for my weight. I was really uncomfortable in my own skin. And so that combined with seeing this traumatic life event happen to my father prompted me to want to be more proactive with my health. But since I was so young, I just didn't have the knowledge to do so in an appropriate way. And so I started doing what I thought would work. And I went through a really severe eating disorder. I was severely anorexic for about 8 years. And although very traumatic experiences, something great came out of it was my passion for nutrition and my decision to go to school to become a dietitian. So I was able to learn in school and apply that knowledge back to my own life and build myself back up. So that's really how I got into the world of nutrition.
Wow, that is so amazing. That's really great that for you to be able to go through all this and then actually not only to learn in addition to learn to for your own good. Many people do that and move through their journey, but now you are using your experience, because I imagine that, correct me if I'm wrong, but many clients perhaps who come to you with nutritional concerns, some of them might have history or are experiencing some form of eating disorder, and
Absolutely.
it'll allow you to relate to them, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important to allow them to feel like they can resonate with my story. So I do get a bunch of people that come to me, and it may not even be a fully diagnosed eating disorder, right? There could be some type of disordered eating patterns that could then spiral if it continues that behavior into a diagnosed eating disorder. So I've had several conversations with so many people about that. And I think it's really important to mention too that although I commonly see females having that struggle, that's not to discredit that men absolutely go through the same struggles. And it may not be advocated as much which I don't agree with. And I'm all about advocating for that. But it is important to mention that men too experience that. An eating disorder doesn't discriminate against any age, race, gender. It really does and can happen to anybody. So going through my own experiences allows me again to provide this I want to say layer of comfort for people in that they can confide in me and that I'm actually understanding what they're going through. So yeah, it's been very beneficial when it comes to me being able to consult my clients on that level.
Wow, that is really, I would admit that yes, when, as you say just now, when we talk about eating disorder, I think it's like in the back of my mind. I know that of course men can experience eating disorder as well. I actually know a couple of them personally. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same times when people talk about it, my mind was like, oh yeah, it's women, and so
Right.
it's so it's so important to make the gentlemen who listen to this realize, I would say, like you said, because it could be, if sometimes, like it's like, if we don't have the awareness, if we don't think it's possible, we don't think it's we're not watchful for that, while their body might have a condition, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
you're like, oh yeah, it's possible, and then I notice my body doing this for a gentleman, and then they kind of like, okay, maybe something going on. That's well, thank you for pointing that out. That's really really important. Now, you mentioned briefly not a fully diagnosed eating disorder, but a disordered eating pattern. What do you mean
Mm-hmm.
by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if people watching this will be, too familiar with all of the different types of eating disorders that are out there, but some of the common ones that we see are anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder. So those are some of the top three that I often see. And I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around this because um I often find that most people that I talk to, there's different things that they might say, or there's different things that I notice. And somebody having gone through a very severe eating disorder, I don't want to just jump to a conclusion and be like, oh, they have an eating disorder, right? But there's different behaviors that somebody might express or partake in that often raise a red flag, right? So whether it's being preoccupied with food, preoccupied with their weight, if somebody is eating an excessive amount of food in a short period of time to a level of discomfort, and then expressing those emotions of guilt, shame, or things of that nature, right? Oftentimes they might not seek the help and they may not be diagnosed, right? So there's different patterns and behaviors that you can often look for. And I actually just had a conversation, or I presented on this topic last week on a webinar, and I was talking to a group of females because I was really trying to bring awareness of how a loved one to an individual going through this type of disordered eating pattern or a full-blown eating disorder can really be supportive, right? And the first piece of it is really to become aware and to look out for these red flags. And then once you've identified them, how do you have those hard conversations to encourage them to go get some help, right? So when I say disordered eating patterns, it's really around just the behaviors of the individual, right? So that's why it's really important to, if you do sense that, oh, okay, this is abnormal behavior, right? They haven't been doing this for X amount of years, and now all of a sudden they've become preoccupied with their weight. They've become preoccupied with food. So it's really those types of red flags that you want to be on the lookout for. And then as a supportive loved one, it's not your job to fix them. It's your job to encourage them to get the help that they need. So that way they can start on their recovery process. So I hope that wasn't too much off on a tangent for you. This is a topic that it really is a sensitive topic, and it's something that I'm very deeply passionate about. And I always continue to learn how even myself can be better at, helping people navigate that for themselves. So
Yeah, yeah. That's very true. Very interesting that you say that and we know that a lot of time, like your share earlier, it can be from a lot of different experience and trauma too. That's triggered this, and
absolutely.
very interesting. It's actually when you're saying that just now, it's remind me to a client who came to me for a different cause of grief. I'm a grief specialist for the audience who's listening, and and the person came to me for a different cause of grief, and it's the most interesting thing is it's actually a couple. They both come to me for a different cause of grief, and then as we work together, we discover that the gentleman who is quite heavy set was in pretty good shape until at certain time point they run into financial challenges. They've been fine since then. That was like more than a decade and some ago, and so they've been fine since then. But since then, looking back, the wife says, you know what? That's when he just like start eating a lot. And initially, they were blaming like everyone else's. They were like, "Oh, it's stress. It's stress. When you having financial challenges, you're all stressed out, and so we eat all kind of things that's not healthy." It's like, but then afterward he just keep eating.
Right, right.
And so and looking back, turned out that he actually was, when he was really young, really young but old enough to remember, they were having that he grew up and in a way that they were having financial challenges, and there was no food in the house. There were time when it was like hungry means drink sour milk.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
so he built himself up very well, and he was fine. But then apparently, when there was another financial challenges, it make him get into and he forgot this whole thing, and we worried about a painful experience. And but then his thing was like, oh my God, now I am, what if there is no food? So I'm just, every time there is food, I'm going to eat as much as I could, or something like that. We
yeah,
and the hard, and thankfully we point that out. So they came to me for one thing, resolve that, and he's like, okay, now I can stop eating and become healthy. And thankfully they do. But it's very interesting, and they didn't recognize this. They, like you said, the eating pattern, it was just, they were like, oh, about the wife was like, oh, he was stressed. Well, I guess it's just a habit now that he eats everything in front of his face, and the house has to be, to the point that the house has to be stocked to the ceiling with food.
yeah.
And we're like, whoa, okay, we can finally clear up some cupboard. So, but yeah,
Right. It really is. And you brought up a good point, because the onset of an eating disorder isn't just one specific cause, right? It can be so many different things. And because it is such a psychological illness, it is really connected to the emotional ties of whatever trauma somebody may have experienced in their life, right? There's a huge element of control, right? When you can't control things that are happening around you, the one thing you can control is what you put into your mouth. And so that really plays a huge piece in it. And just speaking to my own experience, I had several different things. I can't pinpoint just one thing that caused me to say, hey, I'm going to stop eating, right? I'm going to develop an unhealthy relationship with food. And so looking back, I actually worked with an amazing interdisciplinary team. I had a dietitian that I was going to see. I was going to see a doctor pretty much every single day of the week. I didn't really cooperate at first with the therapist that they were. It felt like they were I don't want to say forcing me, but it felt like, okay, like this is just part of what they have to do. But I wasn't ready to open up to a therapist at the age of 14. Now at 24, I'm 25 now. So about a year into actually doing therapy, and we've uncovered a lot of those things. And it's just so easy to connect the dots, right? When you look back and see all of these different things, and it's like, oh, okay, it's not just one specific cause. It's actually a bunch of different things that have caused me to start behaving in such ways, and then it spiraled into the severity that it was. So yeah, you bring up a really good point. It's like there's so many different life experiences that people go through, and it all ties back to my use of personalized nutrition, right? Like you can never assume that one approach is going to work for somebody, because one approach that might work for this person might actually be detrimental to the health of this other person. And so really it is all connected. It fascinates me. I learn something new in the world of nutrition every single day. So yeah, it's really just been quite an amazing journey for me so far.
Wow. Wow. And I would say, actually, before I forgot, actually, I would say to our audience, a lot of time there is, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have different view, but a lot of time there are so many, there's a lot of shame and guilt with eating disorder. We feel that there is a flaw. We're like, oh yeah, like people realize, oh, I might have eating disorder, and then the next thing they think is, oh, I'm weak, I have problem, like it is their fault and it's a flaw. But if you've been listening to this from both of us, our share, know that it's not because you're a flaw, because things happen, and many times it's not things because you're not a specialist in this, things that you cannot see, but when you reach out is when you'll be able to, like what you just said, and now you look back, you can connect all the dots. But if you're in the middle of the whole thing, you can't. But I would say, if if you want to be healthier, or somebody who can benefit from health, it's not a flaw. It's not that they are wrong or weak, or you're wrong or weak. It's just life sometimes shape us in certain way. Wouldn't you say?
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually raises a really good point as well. And I mentioned how I was giving a presentation last week, and I really wanted to place the emphasis on how the support system plays a role in it. And that's because your environment is so crucial to the recovery process. And there's certain triggers, societal triggers, right, that can often inhibit somebody's recovery without people knowing that it's actually inhibiting that person's recovery. And there's also triggers from social media, right? Like you go on social media and you see these beautiful models that are posing in their bikinis, and you're comparing yourself against somebody. You have no idea, what's going on in their life, and the different variables of their specific health and wellness and whatnot. So you're sitting on social media scrolling, and you're comparing yourself to this ideal body image. And I hate that term, by the way. I said it in quotes. You can't see it because it's in the background, but there is no ideal body. And I am such an advocate for health at every size, because just because somebody is super thin does not mean they're healthy. And to me, health is more important than any physical result will ever be. So I spend a lot of my time discussing with just people in the community or my clients, really around the fact that health is number one. Your health is never not going to be important. And those physical results, they'll come. They're an added byproduct, a beneficial byproduct of you taking steps to live a healthier lifestyle. But never chase a physical result. That's the one thing I learned in my experiences going through my own food struggles, is to never chase the physical result and always chase the health.
That's beautiful. Never chase the
Yeah.
result. That's the byproduct. It's kind of like people, the same thing in a way. People say, "Oh, I want to be happy," and it's like, and all these things. It's like, well, if you are happy, if you have things in a way, then you will be happy instead of chasing. I got to be happy, and then that's make you unhappy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
so for what about for our general populations? Say say every person's going who listens to this. Do you have a aside from, and I would say, if you have any questions, if you want to be healthier and so forth, do contact to have them connect with you. And at the same time, do you have a couple, and we discussed that no one size fit all, but kind of like a general understanding or concept about nutrition, perhaps one or two tips for our audience nowadays in this day and age, the way the food industry go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of my favorite activities that I do with people is my 3-step plan. Or I don't want to say a plan, but my 3 action steps, if you will. So the first one being become aware. And this is going to look different for everybody. And what I mean by this is identify your baseline habits, right? Not your mom's, not your dad's, you specifically. And this is actually a writing activity. So what I do is I actually provide them with the worksheets, and it's one section is become aware. The next section is make a plan with room for flexibility. And the last step, the most important, is take action. And this can be applied to anybody at any stage of their health and wellness journey. But if you're somebody that's just looking to start that process or that journey, because it's not easy, right? And you're going to have to prepare yourself in order to stay consistent. These 3 steps are what I see the most success when I do it with my clients. So the first one is just become aware. And what I'll do is I'll provide them with templates, and it'll be kind of like a schedule. Like, so there's 7 days of the week on it. And what I have them do is I have them track their food intake 2 weekdays and 1 weekend. And the reason I do weekdays and weekend is because somebody might eat completely different on the weekdays than they do on the weekends. So I want them to be honest with themselves, but also honest with me. I always tell them, please do not change up how you're eating just because you're reporting it to a dietitian. There's no judgment ever. And I make that super clear. So really just have them document what it is that they do. What are their habits? And then from that, analyze that data, because now that's data that you can actually use, and identify 1 to 3 small changes that they can implement right now. And I don't want them to pick, 5 to 10, because if you try and do too much at once, it becomes overwhelming, and then you lose motivation. And so I always have them identify just 3 of the small changes that they believe that they can do right now. And that will yield the most impact. And then if you wanted to get, more specific and personalized to themselves, then we do the testing, but not everybody gets the testing, right? So then the second part is making a plan, and making a plan around those 3 small changes that they want to make. I always say leave room for flexibility, because life happens. We know that, right? And one of the behaviors that I would do a lot during my eating disorder was I was very restrictive. I was very rigid with everything that I did, and I had no flexibility. And when that happened, when life events happened, I would kind of panic. I just was like, oh my God, I fell off. Like, basically, not to be dramatic, my life is over. I basically was like, this is crazy. This is insane. So I always say leave room for flexibility. But the goal behind making a plan is to make actionable goals that will help you and serve as a roadmap for making these changes, right? It's just that extra layer of guidance for when the unexpected happens, which it will, right? So you'll have something that you can draw back on and and say, oh, okay, here's what I had written out. Here's how I made it specific. Here's, the roadmap that I can essentially stay on. And then the biggest piece of this is ask for help. It's okay to not know all the answers. So you don't have to go down this journey all by yourself. It's really important to ask the professionals for help, right? And they might not know all the answers either, but they will find out for you. That's something I always say is, please always ask me questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will find an answer for you. And so then that last piece of advice is to take action, right? That is the most important thing. You've identified where you want to make these changes. You've come up with a plan now that is realistic, it's specific, it's attainable, and now you need to take action, right? And that's where a lot of people struggle, is the taking action part. They can take action for 1 to 2 weeks, and then by the end of the month something may have happened, and then they let themselves just throw it all away. And that's not to blame them, but it's like, when you have this plan, it's really important to have that resiliency, right? Because things are going to happen. And so that's what I really work on with my clients too, is that resiliency piece, the consistency and accountability. Those are all really important during this process. So those would be the main things that I would say. And like I said, it can be applied to anybody at any stage of their health and fitness journey. But if you're somebody just starting out, it's going to take a lot of accountability and sacrifice. And so having this plan really helps make it a little less intimidating.
That is super awesome. It's great that when people work with you, that you'll be there to be an accountability partner, because we know, like 85-90% of people let go their so-called New Year resolutions. I don't even bother making New Year resolutions anymore, but let go their New Year's resolutions by February, right? And so it's right around the corner for the accountability thing, and so which is a good part of that. So that's so awesome. I'm going to ask you somewhat unfair questions right now.
All right, let's hear them.
So what about organic? Like here, at least where I am in California, I know it's not everywhere in the world, but at least here in California, Southern California in particular, talking about all the model and everything else and all the fad and the social media, it's like everybody in this organic bandwagon and like hype and things. So is organic really that important and crucial, or it's just a hype?
The dreaded question. I will say, if I had $1 for every time I got this question, I could pay off all of my student loans. Like, and I mean, I really don't have a great answer for you. I'll be completely honest. I think that it's a little bit of both, right? I think there's a lot of flaws in our food system, and I won't even get into that topic. And a lot of people have the security of something labeled organic to say, oh, this is better than this, right? But realistically, who knows, right? Like, who knows if it really is what it says it is. So I think there are I'll get organic some things, and the majority of the things that I get which are organic are things that you can eat like the peel of. So like if it's like an apple or like a pear or things like that, yes. I do like to get organic ground beef. I will say organic grass-fed. But really, this question kind of is just like an ongoing controversy, because there's so many what is it called, confounding factors with our food system to really just say, yes, this is 100% the way to go, and no, this is not. It's just a facade, right? So I don't have a great answer for you, because this is still something that I what's the best, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it feels like a game of like tug of war, right? It's like, you're like, well, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And so it's really still something that I'm even navigating. And I don't want to sit here and say, yes, everybody go eat organic, right? Or no, it's just this fake thing that in society. So I really leave it up to the individual, and I educate them as much and as best to my ability on certain aspects of our food system and things to look out for and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you only live one life. And so I always let people live it how they want to live it, right? That's the best answer I can give to you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually have a family member not too long ago, and the persons came to me and brought all this, let's just say, heavily processed food and all these other things at quite a large amount. And I was like, what's all this thing? And the answer was like, well, you can eat this. This is organic. And I'm like, I got it's organic, which is a good place to start. But if you eat all this heavily processed food, it doesn't matter if it's organic.
Right.
It's
Right.
still like basically pure carbohydrate, which I don't, I personally, and everybody's different. I just personally don't eat that. But I was like, yeah, it's a good place to start, but doesn't mean that you want to eat 3 bags of this kind of thing.
Right, right. Which is, again, that just kind of speaks to the point of like, there's so much information out there that it's overwhelming for people, and nobody really even knows, what's true, what's not, because it's all really conflicted, right? You read one thing and then you read another thing, and like, so I really, like I said, I leave it up to the individual. I educate them. If you're doing your best, I always say do your best, not try your best. Like Yoda says, do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing your best, then it really, because when it gets there can become a point, and since we've talked a lot about eating disorders, where people get super fixated on one thing, and then it becomes this restrictive mindset. And so that's what you don't want, right? So it's just, I would say, if you want to eat organic, right? But then there's another element to it as well, where I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the healthier foods being super unaffordable for people that actually do want to be proactive with their health. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to help improve that. Which I don't have all the answers myself, but I definitely want to be a part of, being able to have affordable and accessible healthy food for everybody. So anything that I can do to help in that sense, I'm all about that. And that's where you see a lot of like the conflicting sides with the organic and all of that in today's society. So
Yeah, it's at some point that health, well, it has been, and we're not going to explore the discussions here or in the chat, but at
yeah.
some point it's health become a business, and which is very
Yeah.
interesting. But thank you so much. So how do our audience connect with you if they want to learn more about the personalized nutritions for that's best for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I have different channels that I'm on. So my Instagram, and I can send all of this over to you. You can put it into the description, and everybody is welcome to reach out to me. So I have my Instagram, my LinkedIn is my name. So Milaena Ferrarese. My email is Milaena@monumentalmovements.com, which is my consulting. So there's several ways that they'll be able to. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and emails all day long. So you're bound to get a hold of me in one of the different communication channels. So yeah, I'm more than happy to share those with you, and you can send them out to anybody that would like to chat.
Super, super.
Yeah.
Anna, and
And I will say that I don't know all the answers, right? I'm a lifelong learner, and I think that there's a lot of really cool shifts happening in the nutrition space, and especially towards personalized nutrition. And I'm fairly new at using the genetic testing, and it's a year and a half that I've been utilizing it as a resource. The science has come a long way just over the last decade, but just like everything else, there's still a lot more to be discovered. So just putting that disclaimer out there, that it is a passion of mine. I love helping people with nutrition, and I'm learning along with you. So feel free to just come into my inbox and my email, and I'm more than happy to chat.
Yeah, and we spoke before, and correct me if I misremembered this, but when people hear about genetic testing, sometimes they got scared. They're like, oh God, like thinking about like 15 tubes of blood or something like that. What from what I recall, if I remember correctly, this is like a saliva test that can be done anywhere at home, right?
Absolutely. And there's a variety of genetic testings out there on the market. Some are direct to consumer, some are solely through medical practitioners, which is the one that I actually use, is distributed only through medical practitioners. It's called nutrigenomics with an X. And that testing is a saliva sample. So essentially how that works is anybody that comes through me that would like to receive a test, it's like a drop shipping method. So it's shipped directly to your house. You do a saliva sample, takes you about 2 minutes. It comes with an envelope that's stamped for first class mail. You send it back into our lab, and then on my portal, your barcode will be registered, and I'll get all of your information there, and I'm able to send that to the client themselves as well. And it's HIPAA compliant, so none of your information is being documented. Everyone is tracked with a barcode, and your saliva sample can be destroyed upon request at the lab. So there is security measures in place to make sure that everyone's information is confidential. And I know that's really important for a lot of people. So I'm very much aligned with that. And I would like people to feel comfortable when they come work with me. And so, yeah, it's a pretty efficient process.
Super awesome. That's so amazing. Do you have one final, as we're closing these discussions here, which is just amazing to learn from you and so fun? Do you have one final message for our audience on creating a thriving, healthy 2023?
Absolutely. So something that I've been saying a lot is, why wait? Right. And if people are like, what does she mean by that? I mean, in terms of your health is always going to be important, right? And you don't need to wait for a new year, or you don't need to wait until Monday to start. Start now, right? Taking action is that hardest part, but what are you waiting for, right? You start with those smaller changes, and then over time, those are going to compound to these bigger, more monumental movements. That's the name of my company. More monumental changes, right? But it takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes accountability. So the longer you wait, the longer that process will be for you. And I promise you, once you stop waiting, your life is going to just go up from there. So yeah, I would just say, don't fear the unknown. Just go after it, right? Have a plan, take action, and you'll be amazed with what you can accomplish.
Which is wonderful. That I tend to say my clients to the unknown. It's understandable to fear the unknown, but it's like if you go somewhere and you never been there, because this is a journey to be healthier, even including with you. If you never been there, it can get scary, and yes, you could get lost. But that's why you got a guide that go by your side, whether the guide,
Right.
dietitians, or whatever else that you need, right? So
Right.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Milaena. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your tips today. That is so precious. And for you, my friends who are listening to this, please share one or two gold nuggets in the comments so we can continue learning from each other. And thank you for joining. Please do share this video podcast with your friends and families so they too can triumph and be healthy and happy.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. It's always fun. Our last conversation was fun too, so I knew it would be a great time. And thanks for being my first fireside chat.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah, you said you want fireside chat. I'm like, hey, we might make it happen. So thank you so much. And this is Dr. Burjit Tan, your grief transformation specialist for individual and businesses, founder of International Childhood Cancer Charity, United States country chair for G100 Global Networking All Ladies League. You, my friend, make it a thriving day and a happy, healthy 2023 and connect with Milaena. And we look forward to see you again next week. Bye-bye. Welcome to your Joyful Riches podcast.